Hello and welcome back to Round the Table, your slow TV English class from the Meeting Point, broadcasting not only to Bilbao but throughout the world. And in today's programme we'll be looking at a pronunciation problem, we have a typical mistake, we have a lot of very interesting facts on animals and their senses, and of course we have our celebrity guest speaker with a very interesting lecture on the topic of senses. So let's begin with a pronunciation problem. The letter R. The Spanish letter R is very strong compared to the English one. Ours is a R. You put your teeth on your bottom lip and go R. R. It's not R, okay? It's a kitten, not a tiger. R. So here we have a red roof. Red roof. Red roof. So those are two words that begin with the R sound. Here we have very and ferry. The only difference here is the consonant at the beginning. Very and ferry. You might notice that the R sound is exactly the same. So doubling the R in ferry makes absolutely no difference. So the R here sounds like R. Occasionally, if you listen to certain dialects or certain old recordings, the R might have been a bit more like a Spanish one. There was a tap R. If you listen to very old recordings from the 1930s, you might hear announcers on television saying very, very, like that with a little R in it, very. And if you go to Liverpool, they catch the ferry. Going to catch the ferry to Liverpool. Ferry. But generally speaking, the R is a R sound. Very, ferry. Or carry. You see? Exactly the same sound. So that is the R when it's between two vowel sounds. Now, if we put it between a vowel and a consonant, listen to this. Cart, bird, 40. You see, you don't hear the R sound here. The R is combined with the previous vowel. So in the word like cart, you've only got three sounds. You've got the K, the R, and the T. You're not getting a K, R, T. You're not getting four sounds. There's only three. Now, they might pronounce that R very slightly if you go to America, Canada, places like that, or in Scotland and Ireland, it might be touched on. But generally speaking, in English, South African, Australia, New Zealand, those kind of countries, you don't hear the R. That's called non-rhotic English, for those that want the technical term. Cart, bird, again, bird, b, d, three sounds. 40, you see, f or t, e, 40. You don't hear those R's. So if we listen to these words then, where we're not finishing with a consonant, but we've got words like car, her, and for, again, you're not hearing the R sound. Car, her, for. Don't say car, her, for. Okay? Now look at this combination here. Car door. Listen to car door. You're not hearing the R in car door. But when I say car engine, that R reappears. That is because car door, after the R, you have another consonant. Okay? So it goes k, R, door. When I say car engine, the next word is beginning with a vowel. So I put that R back in there to separate the R sound from the E sound. Okay? I'm separating the vowels by reinstating the R sound. So sometimes you will hear it in car engine, but not in car door. So if I use her and for, I can put these with other vowel sounds. Her uncle, her uncle. You hear the runkle sound, her uncle. For example, for example. The R is reappearing. Now sometimes that R appears when it's not supposed to, which is called an intrusive R, which I think I will have to give a whole other lesson on. So we'll come back to that on another day. But for now, remember the R is much softer than an R in Spanish, and sometimes it's so soft that it disappears, especially when it's in combination with a vowel. So we have a lot of long R, or sounds in English, which you have to pronounce as one long vowel sound, not ir, or, as you would be tempted to do. Okay, shall we look at a typical mistake? Right, here's a sentence. I enjoyed the story, what you told me. Now, this is incorrect. If you listen to some people speaking in England, you will hear this structure, but it's what I would call footballer English. And as you know, if you've ever listened to a footballer being interviewed, they're not the best people to use as an example of the way to speak a language. So what is wrong with it? Well, we have the word what in here. What is not a relative pronoun. So we've got various ways we could say this sentence. I enjoyed the story which you told me. Or more informally, you could say, I enjoyed the story that you told me. Or more informally, we can remove that and say, I enjoyed the story you told me. Now, on our other channel, on Meeting Point English, there's a whole grammar explanation of how to do these relative clauses. There are sometimes you can change which to that when it's a defining clause. Sometimes you can remove that because we've got a separate subject for the verb told. You told me, okay? You is inserted there, which means we can drop it out completely. But you can't use what. This is the key. A lot of people do it, and the reason they're wrong is because what is a nominal relative pronoun, something like that. It has a name. What it does is it takes the place of the object, the story, and the relative pronoun. So I could say, I enjoyed what you told me. Okay, so what includes the story. You can't have the story and what. So I enjoyed the story that you told me, or I enjoyed what you told me, but not I enjoyed the story of what you told me. Unless you want to speak like a footballer, which you can do, but it's not going to get you through an exam, and people might judge you in a certain way, let's say. I took the train up the mountain. Why do we say that? Surely the train took me up the mountain.
Nature is sometimes not as clean as you would like it to be, and falling leaves can make a forest look rather untidy. It is tempting to give nature a hand by heading out to the forest at the weekend with your vacuum cleaner to help clean up the environment. However, using a vacuum cleaner in a forest causes irreparable damage, and in a few short years, the delicate ecosystem can be completely destroyed. Save the environment. Do not hoover the forest.
So I've been conversing with my chat GPT to see if it can give me any amazing facts about animals and their senses. And we have some amazing facts for you. Bats are not blind, contrary to the popular myth. We do say the expression as blind as a bat, but they're not blind, but they do use echolocation to navigate and find flies and moths to eat. An interesting fact about elephants, it says here, elephants can hear with their feet. Elephants detect low-frequency rumbles through the ground using sensitive pads on their feet. Well, they're feeling vibrations. I don't think that is hearing with their feet. I think they hear with their ears and they feel vibrations through their feet. So, not quite an amazing fact. Sharks can detect electricity. In the body, there are tiny electrical pulses that make your heart operate and your muscles twitch. And apparently, sharks can detect these things and they'll come and find you when you're surfing, so be careful. Eagles have amazing vision, 4 to 5 times sharper than human vision, which I think everybody knows. And they can spot a rabbit from over a mile away, which might not be surprising, but what is surprising, they can see ultraviolet light, which means they can see urine trails of prey. So lots of these rodent species like rats, when they walk along, they leave urine trails. They pee everywhere they go. And certain eagles can see this, so they know the paths that are frequently followed by certain animals. That is impressive. Dogs have up to 300 million scent receptors in their noses, compared to about 5 million in humans. So we have 5 million. Dogs have 300 million, and their sense is so powerful that they can detect certain illnesses like cancer and diabetes. There you go, that's interesting. Another one, it says here, snakes smell with their tongues. Not 100% accurate, depends how you understand the phrase. They flick out their tongue, they have that forked tongue, and then they put it back inside their mouth and they collect little bits of particles from the air and they put them onto certain receptors in the roof of their mouth. They have a special organ where they can smell the environment. So they kind of use their tongues, but they're not really smelling with their tongues. Some snakes, like rattlesnakes and pythons, can detect infrared radiation, so they can find warm-blooded creatures in the dark. This is an amazing one. Butterflies taste with their feet. They have taste sensors on their feet so that they can land on a leaf and they know if it's a good leaf to lay eggs on for the caterpillars to eat. That one surprised me. And bees can see invisible colours or ultraviolet light, which we cannot see, and on certain flowers there are patterns that guide them towards the nectar. Some birds have magnetoreception. They can detect magnetic fields which help to navigate over long distances. Now maybe you knew that, but did you know that some sea snails have the same ability? Why they need that is a mystery to me. Octopuses taste with their arms. Octopuses' arms have thousands of chemoreceptors, which means they can touch something and taste it at the same time. Very strange. Owls and other birds of prey have very sensitive hearing. They can detect the sound of a mouse crawling along beneath the snow or beneath the leaves. Not only that, but they have one ear higher than the other, which helps to pinpoint the location of a mouse with a very great accuracy. Another fascinating fact about exotic animals is that Sir Elton John owns 15,000 pairs of glasses. Now that's an amazing fact about an exotic animal.
When my doctor told me to change my lifestyle, I decided to take up fitboxing. Now, I can fit all these boxes into the back of my van.
And now it's time to welcome our celebrity guest speaker with this week's lecture.
Hello again, Richard, and thank you for inviting me back to give another monologue reflecting some of the fascinating ideas discussed at the meeting point this week. Now, some people thought that last week's monologue was a bit complicated, so I've tried to come up with something a bit more accessible this time.
Wonderful, and I'm sure everybody's looking forward to hearing it.
This week's lecture is on how our senses work together. Our 5 main senses, sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell, do more than work alone. They often influence each other, creating richer, more complex experiences. In some cases, one sense can actually change how we experience another. A good example is taste and smell. When we eat, much of what we think of as taste is actually smell. If you hold your nose while eating a strawberry, it's much harder to recognize the flavor. Smell brings depth and variety to what we taste. Senses can also combine in more surprising ways. Some people experience synesthesia, a condition where one sense automatically triggers another. For example, a person might see colors when they hear music, or taste certain words. Even for those without synesthesia, it's common to describe a sound as sharp or smooth, or a color as loud. These are examples of how we naturally mix senses to describe what we feel. One fascinating experiment that shows this connection is the Bubba-Kiki effect. If you see 2 shapes, one round and soft, the other jagged and sharp, and are asked which is called Bubba and which is Kiki, most people choose the round shape as Bubba and the spiky one as Kiki. This suggests that even the sounds of words carry meaning through their shape or feel in the mouth. The sound of words can also connect with physical sensation. Words like tiny, little, and pip are formed at the front of the mouth and feel small and delicate. In contrast, bigger words like strong, grand, or thunder come from the back of the throat or chest and feel heavier or deeper. Even without thinking, we often choose words that feel right for their meaning. Touch, too, can change how we experience other senses. A warm drink can make someone seem kinder. Rough textures might make food seem more bitter. The way something feels in our hands or even in our mouth can affect what we think of it. Our senses are not separate. They are constantly working together, sending signals, shaping how we feel, and even influencing our emotions and language. Understanding these connections helps us better appreciate the richness of everyday experiences.
In Bilbao this week we witnessed a major influx of English football fans. We had a lot of Manchester United fans and Tottenham Hotspur fans, pronounced Tottenham, which was certainly very interesting from an anthropological point of view. We were able to witness a form of ritualised warfare as two tribes tried to out-sing each other, with what were probably highly amusing football chants, had we been able to understand the words. And people have been asking me why Tottenham Hotspur are called Hotspur. Well, a spur is a spike on the back of your boot which you use when you're riding a horse, and you stick it into the horse to make it go faster or to go forward. That is a spur, and it gives us a phrasal verb, to spur on, which means to motivate or encourage, to spur on. So Hotspur was a character from medieval times. There was a famous knight called Sir Henry Percy. In the 14th century, he was very famous for his bravery in battle, and he was known as Harry Hotspur. That was his nickname, because he obviously had hot spurs from charging around on his horse all day long. And his family, the Percy family, owned a lot of land around the Tottenham area. Then in 1882, there were a group of schoolboys from the All Hallows Church in Tottenham, and they were part of a cricket club called the Hotspur Cricket Club. And as you probably know, cricket is only played in the summer, and they wanted something to do in the winter, so they started the Hotspur Football Club. And then a few years later they became the Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, because there was already a London Hotspur Football Club, apparently. I'd never heard of them before, but that's when they became Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. So the Hotspur refers to a brave knight in medieval time, Harry Hotspur. Now, if you look at the badge of Tottenham Hotspur, you'll see a cockerel, a male chicken. And if you know anything about cockerels, on the back of their leg they have a little spike which they use for fighting. And that is also called a spur. And that's why there's a cockerel on their badge. Later in another conversation, somebody was asking me why Manchester has two teams. Well, they're just from different areas of Manchester. Obviously, Manchester was much smaller back in the day. Now they're part of one city, but originally they were from two different places. One of them was originally called Newton Heath LYR Football Club in 1878. And LYR refers to Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway, and they all worked for a railway company. They were based in a place called Newton Heath, and they became Manchester United in 1902. There was another one in an area called West Gorton, and they formed a team called Ardwick Amateur Football Club, and they became Manchester City in 1894. And their origin, they were formed by the members of a local church to help curb local gang violence and alcoholism by engaging young men in sport. So Manchester City was founded in an attempt to stop young men from getting drunk and fighting. I wonder how successful they were. And now, here is the news. So before we finish, just the news to tell you that last week's quiz evening was a resounding success, answering trivia questions on science and history and things like that. We discovered there are some people that have a very good knowledge of historical dates. Generally speaking, people are very good at identifying British cities, but know very little about the United States. Some people were also surprised to discover how old contact lenses are, and the first fax machine was a lot earlier than anyone had expected. And of course we got to discover the delights of the fried egg flavour crisps and the wonderful hornazo, which was brought all the way from Salamanca for us to enjoy. We didn't keep any scores, so we don't know who the winners were, but we presume that everyone's a winner. There were certainly no losers. The next event will probably be on the 6th of June, Friday the 6th. We can't do it the following week because that would be Friday the 13th. We can't possibly do that. So Friday the 6th, we've got penciled in a discussion on the importance of being earnest by Oscar Wilde. For anyone that's interested, let me know as soon as possible and we'll buy some beers and maybe some more crisps. So that's about all we have time for this week. So if I don't see you through the week, have a good week. Till next week.